Hey everybody, and welcome back to a very special episode of Is It Kino, one that has been approximately 15 years in the making. I am Simian D. Jimmy, joined as always by your favorite Is It Kino co-host, Biggs Bigsington.
Yeah, it's good to be back, guys. Our last episode yesterday went well. I'm just glad to be back.
Well, yesterday, it's a daily show. Is It Kino?
Yep. Is It Kino 365? Yep.
Yeah, me and Biggs, we tried to watch every Jake Gyllenhaal movie with a randomized wheel. I'm sure we'll get back to it, but we could not wait for the randomizer to choose Donnie a moment longer. And we are also joined by a certain Frankish man, you could say. Maybe he's a bunny man. Maybe I'm going to shoot him in the eye. It's Eggy Eggman Rodriguez.
That's right. You can just call me your daylight hallucination.
Well, daylight hallucination, just don't call me late for dinner.
That's right. Thankfully for me, I eat about 4 dinners a day, so, hard to be late to them. It is what it is.
Speaking of dinner, Biggs, is this not one of the greatest dinner scenes in film history? Donnie Darko opening scene. What's the opening line of dialogue in the film?
I'm voting for Dukakis. What an interesting opening line. And I also noticed this watch through. For some reason, they kind of put a lot of little political snidbits in there I didn't notice before, I guess.
It was a politically charged time, the late 80s or whatever the fuck. But we'll get into all of it. So much of this movie to get into. Let's start with Biggs' origins. That's right. This, a little known fact, most people might not know this. This is a movie that Biggs is obsessed with and possibly his favorite film of all time. And I recall over a decade ago, coming to visit Biggs in his townhouse apartment, and he was watching this movie every single day for over 100 days?
We have to go back to the original origin, though, because in what we call the party apartment, I don't know if you remember this, but you would come over and we were trying to figure out what to do. And you're like, we should watch.
When you guys got me drunk for the first time and I had to prove I was smarter than the alcohol?
No, not that time. That was a good time, but not that time. But anyways, you're like, we might have been scrolling through like some, I don't know, movie rental place or whatever, and I saw Donnie Darko in the cover with Frank the Rabbit, and I'm like, what the hell is this? And you're like, oh, you've never seen that movie? It's pretty good. And I'm like, no, I haven't. And you're like, well, I guess we know what we're doing now.
So you did not have a Jake Gyllenhaal obsession yet. This movie is what started that pretty much.
Yeah. So it was, we could all give all the thanks to you because you showed it to me at
It's not like I made
time.
the movie. Like, if we can give people credit for showing each other movies,
Hey, I like to give people credit where it's due because, again, with you give me a lot of good recommendations for music, and it's like transformed my entire view of music over the years. So, I got to give some credit to you. And
Donnie Darko, it changed your entire view of homosexuality. Like, you went from straight to bi.
Exactly.
What about you, Aggie? When did you first see this movie?
Well, as I recall, in my later high school years, I finally started getting into something of a social group. So this was maybe about let's say 15, 16 years ago. And they really took a liking to this Donnie Darko movie, and I could never understand why. Now, these were the kids who, this is before social media really existed, but if they had existed, they would have been doing TikToks where they're like, that's just happened, and they would have been like making rhythmic motions with overly expressed Disney faces. These were theater kids, emo kids, the Gay Straight Alliance. Listen, it was a whole lot of different people and from a whole lot of different places. Anime, Naruto headband wearers that ran with their hands up in the hallway. They were very fond of Donnie Darko, and I didn't really quite get it then. And, I'm going to kind of keep it real. To be honest, I think there's probably still a deeper meaning that I might be missing here because I was kind of, before. Well,
thankfully, Biggs was in your position, and he said, I'm going to watch this until I understand it. And that's why he watched it every day for 100 days. Like, you can't just watch it once. You got to really dive in.
Well, I'll just say one last thing quick. I think basically how it was explained to me is I was on this musty couch in a farmhouse smoking probably $1 weed in 2010. They're like, bro, it's like, yo, it's like not like our fates are determined, but at the same time, like there's like different forces and stuff, bro. And so like it's determined, but it can be changed. I think was maybe what these like 35-year-old drug dealers were getting at when they were showing it to me.
Yeah,
so
it's fate versus destiny. We've been talking about this a lot on our One Piece podcast.
That's right.
I do want to preface this episode by saying I have fallen out of touch with watching Donnie very often. I think this is my first time watching. Well, okay, I should say I watched it the other day with my sister, but I watched it again today, the Biggs cut specifically. And
yes, we all watched the Biggs cut, which if somebody doesn't know what that is, do you want to explain that real quick?
Yeah, so basically I had been watching the theatrical version of Donnie over and over, like I don't even know how many 100 times. And then I decided, I might as well like watch the director's cut. I don't know why I never watched that before. So I watched it and I'm like, there's so many really good scenes. Why did they cut these out? Like it didn't make sense to me why they would like have all these, you know, interesting characters and give them a little bit more like their part to the story, you know, and a little bit more like scenes to get to know them. And they just ripped them all out for the theatrical release. And they're like, we're just going to have a bunch of one-dimensional characters and then have like maybe 2 or 3 that actually have personality. And it just kind of irritated me. So I was like, you know what? I'm no filmmaker, but I'm going to go and like get a video like editing software and splice together the best I can what I think would be the best version of this movie.
And you probably succeeded, like including the deleted scenes of Donnie bonding with his father, since we both love Donnie's dad as an S-tier character. And then some things in the director's cut you chose not to include, like when they show on screen full pages from Philosophy of Time Travel. Is that right?
For like 5 minutes of the movie, they're just like flipping through the pages every single time they transition.
Yeah, like kind of explaining the movie to you and ruining the mysticism of the whole time travel and God's channel and all that. So I'm glad you cut out that part of the director's cut, and I would agree that the Biggs cut is the superior version of Donnie Darko. Is there any way we could make this accessible for everybody to watch?
Probably. I mean, we're
kind of like illegally distributing a movie at that point, but...
it's my version of it.
Yeah, it's good with fair use, you know, modifications.
Yeah. I'll just put like, you know what? I'll record like a full, like scene by scene. Like I'll pause it and say something, and it's like, okay, well now it's a review.
Do a reaction video to your edit of Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll have a link in the description, like to a Google Drive that will last one day.
Yeah. Another thing I want to add about the director's cut too is the reason why I didn't use the director's cut as the basis for like my version is because they changed all the music and it's just objectively worse in the director's cut in my opinion. Like even just the opening song was different and it completely like, I don't know, ruined like the mood of the scene, I think.
Is the difference like they're doing needle drops of real music and then like in one version they had a composer make original music, or is it just they're pulling different songs and you like...
I think it was just completely different songs, and I think for some reason in the theatrical release they're like hit it right on the nose, like, oh no, we should use these songs for these scenes, it'll be better with the audience, whereas the director's cut is like, no, I prefer this personally, you know, to this scene, and then it just to me it doesn't connect as well. Maybe in Richard Kelly's mind it played better, but I don't know. I didn't agree with the music choices in the director's cut.
Well, maybe we should try to dive into Richard Kelly, the director's mind here, because I'm glad Aggie said he's still lost on this movie. Maybe Biggs, you and me can solve the whole puzzle for him. Because I'm sure after seeing it 200 times, there's no question in your mind what this movie's about and everything that happens. Am I right?
Well, you see, I originally said I'm going to keep watching this movie until I understand it, and there's a reason why I'm still watching it to this day. I still haven't fully figured it out.
I guess I need to know what you guys don't know. Like, what are the questions I can try to answer as a Donnie Darko aficionado? Aggie, what do you not understand here?
I guess I'm willing to accept that this is just a movie where some things are not going to always be fully explained and you kind of have to just draw your own conclusions. That's fine.
But what? Because I think I could explain everything.
Well, I guess, so I'm watching this, and he's got this, apparent schizophrenia, but whatever his visions are telling him, they seem to be coming together like in an appropriate way, like him going and burning up this Mr. Cunningham's house, and he turns out to be a total sicko freak. I guess maybe there's a little bit of something to that, like maybe the visions are trying to guide him. This is how I'm feeling as I'm watching the movie, because I think the first time I might have just been too high to know anything except there's a giant rabbit man. So I'm going through this, and I'm like, all right, there's some sort of maybe a paranormal, breaching of the two worlds, the spirit world and the physical realm. Okay, and then, at the end, all of a sudden, there's just this, I guess, portal or something where his mother and his sister are flying back from this dance competition, and it becomes the original day when this jet turbine in the beginning of the film had just, this is what kind of led me to, because I'm like, oh, that was like the first thing that Frank directs him to do is, like, he's out of the house, he's sleeping in the golf course, and there's a jet turbine falling on his house. So okay, this spirit is guiding him. But then, no, actually, just kidding, that was a portal in time space. Here comes the jet turbine, and now you're dead, and it's the end of the movie. And I'm like, well, So that was my sort of inclination as I was watching it. That's how I was feeling that it was leading me. And then it kind of left me sort of like Jake Gyllenhaal, a smoldering corpse without any idea.
Got all flattened like a pancake, for all we know. Biggs, I mean, surely you could answer his questions here already. This is like introductory stuff here.
Well, I guess I have some ideas on what I feel like you could say to make sense of the movie, but I think I kind of understand what he's saying. For me, though, is like, what is... Because I remember in school, we were always told, like, when we're writing a story, there should be a purpose to the story. Like, what does it mean? What is it trying to tell you? And I think that's what I struggle with the movie is, like, is it just cut and dry saying, like, we're all fated to a certain thing, but you can try and change as much as you want, but no matter what, you're going to end up on the same path. And if you try too hard, you end up in destruction. Like, or is it like something more? And if it is more, like, what is Richard Kelly trying to tell us? Whereas I guess part of what Iggy is saying is, like, he doesn't understand the timeline of it. Is that what you're saying, Iggy? It's like you're confused with, like, the timeline of things?
Well, it all just seemed very straightforward to me to start. I mean, as straightforward as it could be. Like, I had no thought. They keep referencing this book that this senile woman did, The Philosophy of Time Travel, but I'm thinking is they're kind of leading with that and kind of having that as a piece of the fabric of the film here. Well, there must be something to do with, like, maybe this Frank, this representation from this spirit realm. He's got some sort of time knowledge or something. That's how he's able to set these events up for Donnie to be, okay, go sleep in the golf course, go set this guy's house on fire, I guess, I'm not 100% sure what the representation of breaking the water main is. I guess that one might not have been so forthcoming for me. But that could explain why they keep referencing it, because there's maybe a tie to this spiritual side with time manipulation. But I certainly didn't expect what we got at the conclusion of it.
Well, the thing with the water main came from the book, or short story, The Destructors, that they were reading.
It's meant to be ironic.
Yeah, so like each thing that he does that Frank is telling him to do, it's like a subtle piece of things he's getting from his surroundings. Like when they read the story of the Destructors, they destroy the old man's house by flooding it, by breaking his water main, as Mrs. Farmer says during the PTA conference. And then burning down the house. I'm trying to remember. It just completely left my brain where he picked that up from. But basically,
I know he didn't like that he has the whole confrontation with Cunningham.
Let's dive into that, guys. Enough beating around the bush. It's time to actually talk about what this movie is instead of asking questions about it. Guys, what are Jim Cunningham's initials? JC. Reminds me of a certain Jesus Christ. Could it be this is truly the story of Christ versus Antichrist? I mean, it's pretty much stated word for word from Donnie. I think you're the fucking Antichrist. This Donnie is Jesus, folks, and I know this might be a shock. The atheist telling the two Christians think of this through a Christian lens, but I think that will open up the whole movie to you. Jesus had to choose to die, right? Like, he's in the garden, God's like, hey, you're gonna get all crucified, it's gonna be gnarly. Jesus had to come to that decision, right? Like, he has to sacrifice himself for the sins of humanity. Am I getting this wrong so far?
That's pretty true.
And Donnie, with this whole time travel thing, he's in the wrong timeline. He's supposed to be dead from that jet engine, but he is alive because it is his purpose to fix the souls of the Antichrist and all these poor people before choosing to sacrifice himself yet again by getting crushed by the engine.
Okay, but if you're gonna go with this, then it doesn't really make sense, because if Jake is supposed to be like Jesus, then why is he the one committing a lot of these sins throughout the movie?
Because they're not sins. They're not sins. So he floods the school, which, hey, God flooded the earth for various reasons. Do you remember what happened right before he flooded the school? Jim Cunningham tainted it with his filth. The school is sick and diseased with the Antichrist influence, and Mrs. Farmer, Kitty Farmer, propelling him. She's there's a certain phrase, just like the stupid person who allows evil to usher in through their good intentions. Donnie needs to flood the school to cleanse it after it's been tainted by Jim Cunningham. And fire, even though it's the opposite of flood, it is another way of cleansing something. And he does the same exact thing to Jim Cunningham's house, which uncovers his kiddie porn dungeon. Donnie's Jesus. I don't see how you can call flooding the school any more sinful than flooding the planet.
Well, it's like, when Christ, he ran the money changers from the temple. Jim Cunningham, he had all this filth. It was underneath his good game, his good guises. And just like Christ drove those money changers to the light, the light of cleansing fire was brought to Jim Cunningham's perverted den of sickness, so that he too may be brought to justice. And you were thinking of, I believe the term was a useful idiot.
Yeah, something like that. And then you have Jim Cunningham's whole deal is to remove your humanity by means of fear. He says there's love and there's fear. We all love that scene where Miss Kitty Farmer is making the kids go up to the blackboard. We interpreted that back in the day as, it's just bullshit you have to do in school. But no, this is part of the theological battle of Christ versus Antichrist. And they're trying to teach these youth that fear is something to be rejected, when really it's part of humanity. Like, without our emotions, how are we different than animals? And Donnie pretty much just preaches the same shit. Like, you can't just remove fear. That's part of removing your humanity.
So, in this, okay, if we're thinking of it this way, then why the whole thing with Frank, and why does he end up killing Frank at the end? What does Frank represent in this, viewpoint of the movie, I guess?
Well, let's turn it over to Aggie for that one.
Well, let me see here. Because I guess, with him being against Frank, it wouldn't really be like a great equality to like a Holy Spirit or something that's like kind of guiding him like throughout his behaviors.
And I forgot to mention in my speech that after Donnie chooses to die, much like Jesus did for the sins of everybody, we see the timeline has been changed, but everybody in the little montage at the end, they seem affected as if they have some vague recollection of the events that no longer happened. And I think that has cured them. Like, I don't think Jim Cunningham will continue down his evil path. I think he's a changed man now.
I don't believe that at all. When I'm seeing him sobbing at the end, that is like him being so scared that he thought he was caught. But it's like...
Yes, that's a pretty good motivator to stop your behavior. Like,
but I don't think that's why...
A life-changing epiphany?
No, I think the reason why he's sobbing is because he's so glad that he wasn't caught and it was just a dream.
Oh my God.
I mean, these are both workable options. I almost feel like, I don't know, Biggs, that seems like a bit, Occam's razor kind of deal here, but it seems a little, for how the complexity that's kind of given to everything else, I feel like that would be a little too surface for such a mastermind as Jim Cunningham, who might have already been up to such nefarious complexities, deeds. You know, he might have. I don't know. It just seems
But
like
do you think someone running a literal like kiddie porn dungeon, are they gonna stop after having one nightmare?
Well, I mean, that's the power of Jesus. It's the power of Donnie Darko. You know, it's a whole movie about how impactful this was.
See, I don't know. I feel like after I have one issue with my viewpoint that doesn't really make sense, and it all comes down to like the people that he's met. So like everyone in the movie he knows beforehand, before the movie started, right? The only person that's new is Gretchen. So that Gretchen's the one thing that like is a stickler in my idea of the movie, because the more I've watched it, to me it seems like a play on his mental illness and like the drugs messing with his mind. And it almost seems like at the end when he's like laughing in his room, it's like he's having this psychotic episode where he's like living out this fantasy in his head, you know? And then, but the only thing that doesn't make sense with that is like either he's met Gretchen off camera beforehand, or I don't know how she would be in this like fantasy world he's coming up in his mind, you know, because he hasn't met her on screen yet. Although I guess at the end she is like riding her bike by, maybe he saw her but he wouldn't know her name, and that's why like in this thing he's coming up with in his mind, you know, like
are you trying to make an argument that he's so mentally ill that the entire movie was fake?
Yeah, in a sense.
Fuck that. That's a retarded way to interpret any movie. Like, we see fucking Halloween on screen. That was not in his head. It was in the movie. I hate that shit. Oh, the whole movie was fake because the character's mentally ill. Go write Joker 2. Go fix that movie, okay? Donnie Darko happened.
Is it possible that maybe just perhaps the whole part where Frank is killed and all of that, and then him like walking, carrying the body after Gretchen was ran over, is it possible maybe something there was maybe he's it has some sort of philosophical why I killed him in this way, and I'm really burdening her death on my shoulders by carrying her, but not actually, because would it make sense? I don't know. That might kind of be able to sweep away some of the inconsistencies of like, you know, what's up with Frank and why'd I have to kill him? You know, maybe there was some part of him that was dying to bring about, like, you know, that was him really. Oh, well, here we go. Okay, so Jesus had to carry the cross to get crucified on, right? So maybe. So that's something.
Well, in
Gretchen's body.
Gretchen, she's new to the school because her and her mom are on the run from her dad, who stabbed her mom like a bunch of times, and they had to change their name. So her name's not even actually Gretchen. And then on Halloween, when she shows up to the party, she said that her dad is back. And then
she said her mom was gone. She didn't know what happened, and the house was messed up, and she thought her dad had come back or like found them.
Right, basically. and then the events of the night lead to her getting run over by a car and killed, and then Donnie takes her dead body to watch the God time tunnel move the engine back in time. But I guess the idea is, you know, he's also saving her, even though it was kind of his fault she died in the first place. But without Donnie in the timeline, do we think anything has changed with Gretchen and her horrible life situation? Like, has the Jesus death redeemed her life at all?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. I feel like the only person that has a positive outcome from him being dead is Frank not getting shot. In my mind, that's how it plays out. Everything else is pretty much still going to happen, but I guess the other positive would be the teacher not getting fired, because then the school wasn't flooded, and the PTA, they weren't screaming about, oh, the destructors told the kid to like flood the school and all this. So I guess the teacher probably wouldn't have gotten fired either.
Please call her by her name, Mrs. Drew Barrymore, the teacher. That was her name in the movie. Here's my question: Reese Witherspoon or Drew Barrymore, Biggs?
Well, if you want to be specific, her name in the movie was Karen, so...
Yeah. Which one would you bang if your wife died? Reese Witherspoon or Drew Barrymore?
That's kind of an odd pairing.
two beautiful women with names that are annoying.
Probably Reese. I don't know.
That's fair. What about you, Aggie? And we're not talking about during ET, we're talking about as adults.
Whoa!
Hey, what do you take me for, Jim Cunningham? That's right. You might have heard I said Cummingham because that's what he was doing. Cumming, H-A-M, hard as a motherfucker. That's a rap song. Anyway.
That's what ham means, hard as motherfucker.
Yeah. Going ham, going ham. It's a rap song from back in the day.
Good to know.
Anyway. To me, Drew Barrymore, this is like a Southern Belle versus kind of like a love child hippie type of deal. And I'm thinking Miss Barrymore on that hippie mode. I think she's going to be my pick.
Whichever one was in Home Again, I don't remember. I picked that one. That was a good movie. I get them mixed up is the problem, and they're not even that similar.
Another random thing I guess we can say before we move on. I thought it was funny with this being Seth Rogen's first movie. His very first line ever in a movie was, "I like your boobs." That's pretty peak.
And the
he peaked early with his career.
The most recent line I heard from him, I think by production date, was in the Sausage Party TV show. And he was talking a lot about boobs and other things in that show. So, he really has been staying true the whole time.
Yeah, too bad he wasn't. Maybe they did smoke weed in this movie. They're doing a bunch of weird shit. Him and that guy that looks like the Jonas brother. He was falsely accused of flooding the school.
Oh, Sean?
Yeah.
His friend Sean, you mean?
I guess they are snorting cocaine in the hallway at the beginning.
Oh, wait, no, you're talking about like the bully, right?
Yeah, not the guy that looks like me, the bully guy that looks like the Jonas brother.
The one that looks like you. Yeah.
But anyway, so we wasted 15 minutes with my bad interpretation of what the movie's actually about.
Hey, that could be it.
Well, the thing is,
it's way cooler than mine. I will say that.
I think if the director has not directly stated what it is, it's open to interpretation by every individual viewer. So we're all equally correct. But
so let's
go ahead.
I was going to delve into another one that I read online. Actually, something to the effect of Sharita. So the Chinese girl, right? That's like
go back to China, bitch.
So I remember reading somebody's take on the movie as like Sharita being like this time agent, and that's why she's at all these like pivotal points in the movie, and she's like watching Donnie, and she sees that he's trying to move out of this, faded timeline of his, and she's like doing things subtly in the background to force him back on path. What do you think of that?
She's like a TVA time cop.
Yeah, I thought that was so funny.
I think she's just a fat chick who's in love with him and then drops her books and has his name written on her book.
Hey, but you never know. What if the book opened up and it was like notes on his timeline? You never know.
I mean, every character you could like just dive in. Like, what was the point of this character? Because Sharita is just hanging out on the baseball field alone, and Drew Barrymore gets fired and goes out and yells, "Fuck!" and then turns around and Sharita's there. Like, what was the point of that? I don't know. Yeah. It was funny.
Well, when I think about Sharia and I think about, Grandma Death and her book of all this stuff, I'm thinking if she did drop her books and they had some time note scribbles in there, I'm starting to lean into this religious euphemism. So what I'm thinking is, under these, possible religious allegories here, these are sort of like false prophets. Like, oh no, you're not actually the reincarnation of God. It's just science from my book from 50 years ago, and all that stuff is like scientific. So we're not going to teach the controversy anymore. You have to believe this science. And even though I'm an old lady that gets run over by cars all day,
we cannot continue this conversation. I could lose my job.
Yeah. So I guess the other thing we could talk about is taking the movie at face value with the timeline that we're presented.
Sure, I feel like, isn't that what we've been doing?
Well, yeah, but like without thinking of all like these background meetings and stuff, just the movie as it is, with the timeline as it is, I feel like at the end when he like sends the turbine back and it kills him, wouldn't that start a paradox? Because if if he dies, okay, then he's no longer in that timeline. If it is, we're looking at like one singular timeline, or if it's like whatever, what was that?
Like the Master Grand timeline, and then anything that deviates is like a branching timeline.
Right. So if it's branching timelines, then sure, it makes sense. But if it's one,
which is what I think it is. I
timeline-
think Donnie surviving was the branching timeline, and he had to fix the main timeline by killing himself.
Okay, yeah. So, and then I know I can't really blame Richard Kelly for S. Darko, and I don't want to get too much into S. Darko.
Which we will get to that next month, I think.
Yeah, but one thing that kind of irritates me is it does kind of cause a little bit of a paradox into the sequel, though it's not by the same guy, but because there's bits and pieces in that movie that wouldn't have happened because Donnie was dead. Unless that movie as itself is a different branch, I guess, which...
We could safely assume S. Darko is dog shit.
Yeah.
You don't have to
Oh my goodness.
worry about it connecting.
I think I actually just really determined the entire movie. I just figured it all out. I cracked the whole
Epiphany
code.
mode activated. Let's go.
All right, so basically the real truth here is what Frank is. He's a satellite beamed construct into Donnie Darko's head, right?
Okay.
There is no time travel. There's none of this time rift stuff. This is all to throw you off of the fact that there are people in this time. They are not. I don't know if it's insider trading. I'm still putting a couple of these pieces together, but these were two separate aircraft, folks. This was a double jet turbine, okay? Now you're thinking to yourself, well, this can't be because how did the house get repaired and all this stuff? Listen, it is, all right? Because I think they were trying to outsource or cheapen the materials of the planes, and these were two separate incidents that happened. And what they had to do was beam. After they had the first one go down, they're like, all right, we know it's MK Ultra, right? They know when somebody's got a little weakness to them, then they start applying that pressure to really crack that head all the way open. Psychological warfare. So they got an inclination that this Donnie, he's a little off. His family's not the best chemistry going on. We're going to hit him with this 5G satellite ray right to the brain. It's going to manifest these delusions. He's going to go out. He's going to start breaking water pipes. He's going to start sleeping in lawns. He's going to,
Did they have this technology in 1988?
Well, I'm thinking it's Roswell, New Mexico, 1940s. This was probably less advanced than that.
Okay, well, that's very likely, actually. My top 3 Donnie Darko theories, you just made it in there.
So maybe it was, I don't know what the inside, I don't know who exactly in this time frame would have made a payoff from failing aircraft. Maybe it was some sort of
Gretchen's
espionage.
dad. It's all Gretchen's dad.
So the second turbine, so you're saying at the end, after Gretchen dies, she's still dead. He just goes up to his room, and then another one hits? I missed the first part there.
Yes, there's espionage against aircraft.
So if that's the case, then how do you explain when he's in bed laughing and it comes down and kills him? It's his old room. There's none of the new stuff in there.
Yeah, because he told the teacher to shove it up her ass, and then the parents bought him a bunch of new stuff. What the heck?
This was basically, they had to really crank that, because when they started beaming the time here, that, okay, this is the end of the world, they knew when this flight was going to be scheduled to take off, they had to take this flight down, so they started putting the pieces together, the set pieces, okay? And they started cranking up the delusion rays. So he's probably laying, who knows, who could even say for sure, maybe he went back into a charred room and it's still like totally in disrepair, but he thinks in his mind, because this is a image that he already had in his mind from the past, so his brain can pull this back up and use it as a disguise in his delusion that it's actually a fully furnished room. And then they go ahead and they say, all right, pull the plug, boom, drop the next turbine, some insurance payout for millions and billions. Maybe somebody was on that plane, like how they sunk the Titanic when it had those really rich men on there, and that's the reason why the Titanic went down. This is the reason why this plane had to go down. And my piece de la resistance, or however the French say that, this movie could not be theatrically promoted due to the fact that it happened to have a theatrical release that was directly after 9/11. And it had exploding planes in the trailer, so they couldn't really market it properly. Coincidence, or secret Illuminati signaling, like, hey, we knew. That's all I'm saying.
George Bush had it out against this movie, so he did 9/11 just to cancel the film.
Now,
Yeah,
once again,
true.
not to go against Drew Barrymore here, because like I was saying good things about her, but this independent film that was from the most grassroots independence you've ever heard of, she just decides to give it millions of dollars from her film company to make it happen. Drew Barrymore, Illuminati, why she's still on TV doing it? So they just renewed her talk show for 7 seasons. Anybody ever even watched one episode of it? I'm just saying.
Not me. Okay, well,
So
we've
just
solved
a thought.
Donnie Darko. So should we talk about some of the little things from the movie that make it worth watching over and over again? Basically, just a lot of great characters and dialogue, and that's the key to any cult status movie. Am I right, Biggs?
Yeah.
Do you have any lines that come to mind that we haven't already said that are worth just repeating and giggling about? Maybe something to do with the Smurfs having sex, or
No, go into that whole dialogue. Dude, it's so sad because when I used to watch this movie like daily, I used to be able to like
you had the whole script
speak.
memorized.
I could speak the lines as they were coming, and now it's like I'm super rusty. I get some here and there, but nowhere near what I used to be able to.
Yeah, how do we get you back on track to be the #1 Donnie head?
I guess you got to send like a jet engine over and hit my wife, I guess.
Okay, I got that on my to-do list. Biggs, why does teacher Drew Barrymore hate the student Joni so much? Just so nasty to Joni throughout the entire film. Opening line is Joni incorrectly saying what happened in
Yeah.
the 10-page short story, and Drew Barrymore fucking goes off on her in front of everybody.
Because, as Ronald, the student behind her, said, hey, you suck. Like, Joni just sucks throughout the movie.
And then the new girl comes in, and the teacher says, yeah, just sit next to the boy you think is cutest, which is, of course, is Donnie. So she makes Joni move to a new seat so the new girl can sit there.
What's funnier about that scene is, like, she's looking around the room, and you see all these guys turn around looking at her, like, winking at her and stuff, and freaking Joni's like checking her out too. She's like, what are you like smoldering at her or whatever.
So Joni's got some lesbian intrigue in this new girl, and then the ultimate rejection. Not only do you have to move, but this girl's into Donnie and not you. So Joni, I'm surprised she did not commit suicide by the end. Does Joni have any other scenes? Like, does she have a presentation for the show and tell or anything?
No, she's pretty much like just there. But she did,
Did she ride their bus? Is she waiting at the bus stop with them?
Yeah. I was about to say, like, Donnie and his friends are staying there and they're like smoking cigarettes, and he's like, don't tell mom and dad. And Joni's like, ew, grody. And it's like, all right, I already hate you.
Joni's not the one who thought that feces meant baby mice, because you'd have to be a brain dead retard to make that mistake.
I think that was
it's like a bunch of children.
Bethany. No, that was Bethany, right? Wasn't that Mrs. Farmer's daughter?
Probably. I didn't know that the dance troupe girls had names, but that's another great line. I'm seriously, what is it, doubting your commitment to Sparkle Motion?
Yeah.
Yeah. Any funny lines that come to mind for you, Aggie?
Well, I have to say, the teacher there who
Mrs. Farmer.
she was
Or the other
Kitty
one.
Farmer.
Yeah.
She was really a shining beacon of hilarity, of sort of this pearl clutching stereotype throughout the film. She was probably just about anything she did was good comic relief, I gotta say, which is good because we have all this sort of supernatural tension going on. We have a little bit of that slice of life from Donnie's perspective, kind of muddled with some of this insanity.
And that
Yeah, a little
actress
bit of
plays the same character in everything. Like, she's one of the moms in Malcolm in the Middle for the smart kids class. Exact same character. Not even a smidge different. She's typecast every time, and she plays the horrible old bitch perfectly every time.
Yep, every single time.
Like, you hate this woman. I cannot imagine the actress being a good person. That's how good this actress is. I fucking hate her.
And you know what? She was in a great show that we all love called Slippin' Jimmy. So, and that's a cartoon, so she could even take it there.
Wait, she did a voice work in that?
Miss Wretch, who sounds an awful lot like the type of person that she would be. She sounds like a wretched person. So,
let's see. Is there one other quote I had in my notes? Donnie says that he loves the movie Back to the Future, and the way that they shot it was so futuristic. I thought that was pretty funny because, like, I don't know if that's the go-to compliment for Back to the Future, is that it was shot futuristically. Don't know about that, but I appreciate that he likes it. Biggs, let's go to you. Favorite movie of all time. What else should we discuss before we get out of here?
I don't know. There's little bits and pieces that kind of confuse me with Frank still. And part of it's with Maggie's character. Because, like, in one of the scenes I added in from the director's cut, they're, like, carving pumpkins together, Donnie and his sister. What's her name? Elizabeth? And he's literally carving Frank, like the bunny mask. And she's dating Frank, and I assume at some point she's seen one of the million drawings in his room of this bunny costume he's making, and she, like, doesn't connect the dots at all.
Is that why it was a deleted scene? Or, no, I guess it was director's cut scene.
Yeah, it was director's cut.
Or is it that just another reason? It's 5G delusion rays. That was a pumpkin that had never been carved. Okay, he's just seeing Frank everywhere.
But she literally says, "Oh, that's scary."
Maybe she has not seen Frank's designs for his Halloween costume yet.
I mean, I guess, but you would think she's been with him multiple times, and, like, it's literally all over his room at the end. Like, you see the same sketch like a million times all over his desk and stuff. I guess another thing was, and yeah, I guess Donnie could have, like, mimicked it, but the fact that they made me do it when he, like, flooded the school and, like, painted on the sidewalk is literally just Frank's handwriting. Like, when he writes "Frank was here, gone for beer" or whatever on the fridge, it's the same handwriting.
Well, maybe it was sort of the force of the spirit, if it's God or whatever.
It, like, took over him.
Yeah, because he's kind of in a trance as he's walking around the flood main or whatever, the water pipes. And then when he says
Frank was secretly an employee of the same insider trading company, whichever one it was, we can't say for sure. After everything goes down, he plants a pistol with blanks on it for Donnie to grab and shoot at him. He pretends to fall over dead, gets up after Donnie walks away.
Frank planted the gun in Donnie's parents' bedroom.
Yeah.
And then he had the God's time tunnel.
He's back to the house. It's all good. He'll never suspect anything. We're tying up all the loose ends. Now pull it. And then they drop the turbine. Oh my goodness. The facts just keep coming, folks.
I think the editing will give us a lot of clues, like what specifically they're constantly cutting to when things are happening, because there are some scenes that are a little bit confusing. Like, we'll see Donnie burning down Jim Cunningham's house with dramatic music interspliced with Sparkle Motion performing basically a child pageant, and I figured those kinds of things have to be extremely intentional, like burning down the pedophile child porn guy's house while these children in these costumes are dancing for a bunch of adults. Like, I think that's intentional. And then when Donnie's talking to Frank and he says, "Why did you make me flood the school?" Frank says, "They are in great danger." And as he's saying that, it cuts to the PTA meeting, and it cuts to Kitty Farmer advocating for why this filthy literature needs to be removed from the school, and that this child pornographer needs to be moved in. Oh, the great irony, great juxtaposition of information. And pretty much anytime they're talking about evil or something bad, they love cutting to Kitty Farmer.
Yeah, that's true.
She's going to drive the point home for you in the best way.
She's ingratiating the Antichrist, and it's no good. Antichrist is going to Antichrist, but we don't need these mortals inviting them into our homes.
Do you think if this movie was made today, and Frank said because they were in danger and it cut to Kitty Farmer, would she be yelling at the principal about them, like, indoctrinating kids with, like, transism and LGBT in schools?
Well, it takes place in the 80s, so hopefully not.
Well, that's why I said if this movie was made today.
Well, yeah, people like Kitty have always been looking for something to bitch about so that they can feel powerful in their small community. So, like, if it wasn't bitching about normal literature short stories, it's going to be about, like, trans kids and stuff. So, kitties will always exist.
Yeah, I thought it was funny how she's like, I'm the only one that transcends the parent-teacher bridge.
Yeah, she is both. What about Donnie takes Gretchen on a date to go see Evil Dead in the movie theater. Bitch falls asleep in 3 minutes. Would you not dump her?
Wholeheartedly would be me, and I have done that with you at the movies.
Wait, what movie did you fall asleep immediately?
I feel... Did I go see... What was the... like the all-chick movie with Harley Quinn? What was that movie called?
We walked out of that after 20 minutes. Then that was the last COVID movie. So
yeah, but didn't I like fall asleep even in the like 10 minutes, and then I woke up and you're like, let's leave?
You fell asleep during that delicious egg sandwich scene? I thought that would keep you awake. I guess even food won't help Biggs with the shitty movie. Yeah, can't believe final movie I saw before COVID shut down theaters I walked out of because it was so dog shit. Fuck that Harley Quinn movie.
I can't remember what it was called.
Birds of Prey.
Oh, yeah.
And then they made up some fake stupid Tumblr word for the rest of it, like the fantabulous misadventures of the renowned lay epic Harley Quinn. And it made no money, and hopefully everybody involved was killed. Any final thoughts on Donnie Darko?
Well, for the first reasonably sober time I've watched it in over a decade, I gotta say, I did enjoy it. It's got those elements I previously mentioned where it's got some good quirks to it. It's got some humor. It's got some drama, some suspense. It'll leave you questioning. It'll leave you scratching your head and thinking about things. And I think that's all you could ask for from a movie, especially from an independent release. Really spectacular. Also, one thing I hadn't mentioned that I thought was pretty cool is that the Darko siblings, at least Elizabeth and Donnie, are both the Gyllenhaal siblings in real life, so that's kind of like a little extra immersion there for me. I guess it added a little bit to the film. So I definitely enjoyed it. If I didn't quite entirely understand it, it was still a good movie.
I bet even the people in it don't entirely understand it. Surely only Richard Kelly does.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I think them being like actual siblings did make that opening scene a little funnier, where they're just going back and forth, like bickering.
Ooh, I keep looking at my notes and getting more gold. Biggs, when Donnie walks out of Evil Dead movie theater to go burn down Jim Cunningham's house, do you remember what movie was on the marquee right above his head as he's walking away?
I literally just saw that too. No, it slipped my mind.
The Last Temptation of Christ. He's just begging us to have this interpretation, folks. Anyway, every living creature dies alone. And at one point, some women were fawning over Jim Cunningham and said, I can't believe he's single. Well, you're not his type. Yeah. I think I know why.
I guess what I would end off on is, if you haven't seen this movie, I would urge you to... It's hard. I would watch both the theatrical and the director's cut if you don't have access to the Biggs cut, because
which you probably
there
don't.
Are so many really good scenes where it's like Donnie bonding with his parents, or showing the parents on their own, like showing some personality in them, so they're not just like, oh, mom and dad's on screen right now and they said something that's forgettable and then they're gone, like, especially for me, the scene where he's sitting there with his dad outside, like in the backyard, and his dad's telling him, like, you're not crazy, just like the world is just full of idiots and you're just too smart for all of them, just tell them to go to hell, basically. Like, that's such an endearing scene, and you miss that from the theatrical release. It's really sad.
I think the parents are all-time great parents, even if their son is a little deranged and disturbed. I like when Donnie calls his mom a bitch, basically for no reason. Like, she hasn't done anything wrong. But instead of blowing up on him like, Biggs' mom, we all know how she is. She'll start pushing you down the stairs if you act up in Biggs's house. But
Well, now
Donnie's mom just goes up to the dad and says, "Your son just called me a bitch." And what does he say?
You're not a bitch. You're bitching, but you're not a bitch.
What a great attitude to have. I love it when people have a good attitude about things.
I guess another funny line of dialogue is when they're in the hotel and Samantha's asking like how it happened, and Elizabeth's like, we don't know how it happened. And then Donnie's like, shut up, Sam. And she's like, why do I have to sleep with Donnie? He stinks. He's like, when you go to sleep, I'm gonna fart on your face. Like, what an out-of-pocket line to throw in there.
Was that only in the director's cut?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that scene was a little unfamiliar to me. We also find out at the beginning that Donnie Darko used to go around toilet papering houses with his friends up until 6th grade, so he was always disturbed. I'm with Biggs. This whole thing is just in his head. He's mentally ill. He's a deranged schizophrenic, and the point of the movie is don't waste time with mentally ill people because they're crazy and they don't know shit about the Smurfs.
No, when he goes off on that, his friend tells him, he's like, damn it, Donnie, why do you have to go and get smart on us? Like, he's just talking about random
It's just
Smurf
illogical.
lore. What's the point in living if you don't have a dick?
It's a good point. Women have struggled to answer that question for ages.
Well, they don't have to anymore because they can have them now.
Oh, Biggs. Is this Kitty Farmer I hear on the other end?
No, you're the one that's not being politically correct.
I hear sarcasm. Anyway, my point is, listen, we just said some movies are so bad we cannot finish them. I wasted money seeing the Harley Quinn movie, walked out, didn't get a refund. This is a movie that collectively of the three of us has been watched over 300 times. And that's mostly me and Biggs, but I'm just saying. A movie that is this rewatchable has to at least be worth watching one time. And if you break your Donnie cherry, pop that thing, there's a good chance you're going in for seconds, thirds, fourths, and fifths. So
Absolutely.
If you have not seen Donnie Darko, but you just watched this review, you're sick in the head, you need therapy, don't stop taking your pills like Donnie did, and go watch the movie.
I'm 100% behind that. And if you think you don't want to, I'm going to take one more verb here, one more adverb. Richard Kelly was inspired to start writing a sequel, which hasn't had any updates in 3 years. But after a 2010 meeting with James Cameron, Cameron found Donnie Darko, quote, disturbing, and made Kelly explain what happened at the end of the movie. So, you know what?
So James Cameron knows the answer?
James Cameron watched Donnie Darko, and he couldn't figure it out, and that's James Cameron, folks. So don't feel like you're some silly Billy, some goofball. Just sit down, watch that movie, and then you're ready to watch that movie, and you're going to enjoy it both times.
Is there a chance Jim Cameron will put the secret of Donnie Darko in Avatar 3, so if I have a keen eye for detail, one truth will prevail? Let's hope.
He might have already dropped it in on Avatar 2, for all we know.
You have to rewatch that now that I know he knows the secret of Donnie. Biggs, are you excited next month for us to get back together to review your favorite sequel, Back to the Future Part 2?
Yes.
What about S. Darko?
Oh, I actually did just watch it again recently because
You watched S. Darko again?
Yes.
For
yes.
what fucking purpose?
I made my sister watch Donnie Darko, and I was like, "There's a sequel, but it's terrible. You want to watch it?" And she's like, "I guess." So
Did you tell her that
it.
you have a cameo from the lead actress? Or
I did.
One of them.
I did.
Did you watch the cameo?
No, I don't. It's somewhere in my files. I have to find it again.
It's on our podcast if somebody needs to find it. What was the retirement party of Biggs Bigsington? Go check that one out. It did not age perfectly, as you can tell by the cast of this episode, but Biggs does receive a cameo from S. Darko herself, I think. Was it from her or from her friend?
No, it was from the friend.
Fuck!
It was from her friend Corey. Yeah,
Okay.
Brianna Evigan.
Hot chick?
Sure.
Okay. Hey, who else buys cameos from hot chicks for their friends? You know, I'm a good guy.
For some reason, I remember last time you told me that Sam Darko's actress was hotter in the first movie. Is that true?
That's that was the name of Maggot Gyllenhaal's character, right?
No. That was the other sister.
You do hate, what is it, Maggie Gyllenhaal? You hate this woman, right? Should we?
I do.
Do you want to end the podcast
just
telling us why you hate this woman?
It's just every movie she's in, I just hate seeing her face. I hate her acting, and I think it's hilarious that BoJack Horseman called her Maggot Gyllenhaal.
Yeah,
that was phenomenal.
They got her. Eggy, you want to plug anything on Rumble?
Well, I do just want to say, in defense of the particular aforementioned cameo, Brianna Evigan was in the Numb music video by Linkin Park, so arguably a greater cinematic achievement than S. Darko. I'm saying that without ever having seen it, but...
And that's probably her in her peak, so go check out the Numb music video. I've become so numb, I can't feel you there. Become so tired, so much more aware. I'm becoming this. All I want to do is be more like me and be less like you. And I know.
I'm starting to feel like Donnie Darko because I think the spirit of Chester Bennington is somehow in my ears right now. Anyhow, rumble.com/C/Eggy White, road to 1,000, road to verification badge, the shadow ban era, folks. I can almost taste the freedom. We've had only half of our streams getting shadow banned lately. So, and I think we hit a new possible record. We had $300 in super chats in the first 10 minutes on my birthday stream. Oh my God.
Nice.
So if you want to tune into Eggy's next birthday, 1 year from now, go to rumble.com/C/Eggy White. Biggs, do you have anything to plug other than S. Darko?
I will also plug Eggy.
Sounds good.
Go check it out.
Okay. Well, for the Fateful Findings episode of Donnie Darko Kino, I've been me.
I've also been me. We love you, Holmes Osborne.
I've been Frank, and I ain't talking about Enfurter, but shout out to the same people that like Donnie Darko because they like that movie too.
We're going to do Frank and Weenie next week, so stay tuned.